enemies. Aunt Beatrice laughed. Are you serious? Enemies? You might as well have asked if she owned shoes. Over the course of years, she managed to infuriate anybody who was anybody in the Cahill family. People would swear they'd never talk to her again. She, well, me included. I could sit here and count them for you, but then I'd never catch my plane. Did you ever know any of the outcasts? Nellie asked. Aunt Beatrice waved a hand. Of course. Cousin Delphine, John Beam Cahill, Trudy Macon Fling, and poor Stefano, my second husband. I really realize he did embezzle from the Cahill treasury, but you'd think a little forgiveness for her own brother-in-law was in order. But Grace never forgave anybody. Her retribution list was endless. Aunt Beatrice leaned closer. Don't you know that Grace wasn't a nice person? She was mean and petty. Come on now, Bea, Fisk said. Grace had her issues, but don't talk to me, baby brother. Beatrice snapped. You were always her favorite, and she could do no wrong in your eyes. And may I remind you that you were floating around the Riviera when Grace was head of the Cahills. How would you know what she did? I knew enough, Fisk said. She was tough, but honorable. She had high standards. She had ridiculous standards. Look what she did to her own husband. You are a fool, Fisk Cahill. You always were about Grace. You are still blind. You refuse to admit what she did. Aunt Beatrice's voice shook with bitterness. Nellie glanced at Sammy. Suddenly, the tension in the room was thick. Fisk gripped the arms of his chair as though he wanted to launch himself through the computer screen. It's time you face up to what she really was, what she was capable of, Beatrice said. Beatrice, don't. Fisk's tone rang with steel. You want information, don't you? Try this. Beatrice leaned closer to the screen. Grace made her own husband, Nathaniel Hartford, an outcast. What did he do? Nellie asked. He told her he wanted a divorce. That's all. You don't know that, Fisk cried. She would never make him an outcast just because her marriage was over. I know about her pride, Beatrice sneered, and her inability to admit failure. So yes, she made him an outcast because he rejected her. And not only that, Beatrice, I'm warning you. Warning me? Just like Grace? Your precious Grace? Well, I didn't listen to her, and I'm not listening to you. Grace put out kill order on her own husband. Aunt Beatrice's words came out in a rush, and she sat back, satisfied. That was just a rumor, Fisk thundered. Fine. Believe what you want. Aunt Beatrice glared at the screen. He's still dead. He was killed in Moscow. Poisoned. What? Nellie blurted. I never heard this. It can't be true. Grace wouldn't put out a kill order on anyone. Don't be naive, child. Of course she would. And did. She was ruthless. She did it. And then she scrubbed the archives. But we all know the truth. She shook her fingers at the screen. You are all so blind. Don't you understand? Grace was evil. That's enough, Bea, Fisk said, unfolding from the chair and standing in front of the computer. He pointed a finger at the image of Beatrice on the screen. In his billowing white shirt, he looked like an avenging angel. It's not who's full of malice. I do have a sense of loyalty left, no matter what you think, Fisk. And no matter what Grace was, I wouldn't get mixed up with that outcast. But I'm not going to pretend my sister was an angel. I'm not. And don't point your finger at me. Fisk turned away. He was shaking with anger. This conversation is over. I'm sorry, Fisk, Nellie said, glancing from Beatrice's tight face to Fisk's back. But whatever Grace did, or didn't do, the fact remains that one of the outcasts is out for revenge. There's a pattern here. Ian said Magnus Hansen was involved in the conspiracy. Vikram Kabra, Patricia O. They are all people who have been disgraced for some reason or another, who were forced out of leadership positions. It gives us something to go on. And Singapore, Sammy said. If the outcast was recruiting from there, someone must know about it, and I know just who to ask. My godparents, the Chens, are prominent ECATs in Singapore. He went to Oxford with my dad. No time to waste, Nellie said. I'm still here, you know, Aunt Beatrice said. If you go to Singapore, bring me back some of that divine silk, pink. I'll give you the address. I have the most talented dressmaker in Palm Beach. Fisk strode across the room and switched off the video feed. He crossed to the window and stared out into the courtyard. Nellie studied the stern lines of his face. Anger had changed the set of his mouth. She found to her surprise, that he looked much more like the pictures of Grace she'd seen. She'd never thought they looked alike before. Sammy called softly from across the room where he was staring at his phone. We can just catch a connecting flight to Singapore from Mexico City if we leave now. Nellie nodded at Sammy, then turned back to Fisk. He said that if any of the outcasts crossed Grace, they would suffer retribution. You may not believe what Beatrice said, but how far do you think Grace would go? You have to tell me. It's important. The past is the past, Fisk said tightly. Leave it. But it's not the past, Nellie argued. It might be the key to identifying the outcast. She put a hand on his arm. Fisk, tell me, how far would Grace go? She saw him swallow. His eyes were haunted. I don't know, he said.